I saw this movie. I remember like I was in a video store. There was a small video store in the town that I grew up in, and I used to know a guy. I actually didn't know the guy who worked there. We actually became friends later on, like later on in life, which was pretty funny. But he used to work there, and he had this movie on, and they were just laughing at it because it was so ridiculous. And I just remember seeing some of the vampire scenes. And my dad at the time was just like, that movie looks ridiculous. Like, what a silly, stupid movie. And of course, like I was just like, how do I watch that movie? So that's kind of how I found out about it, because I didn't really know about Tarantino at that time. Like he was still kind of relatively new. Like I had seen Pulp Fiction. I think after I saw this movie, believe it or not, just because it just, I lived in the country and stuff didn't really get to us as quick as it did other places. Like everyone talked about Pulp Fiction, but nobody had really seen it in the theater. So I can't remember which movie I saw first, but it was around that time where, every movie that was coming out had this sort of like crime sort of element to it because Tarantino
Mhm.
had made it so popular and stuff. So I eventually watched it on VHS. But Kells, do you have any kind of like teenage childhood memories of how you saw this film for the first time? Or
I think this was one that I probably saw when I was in high school for the first time. Um, I don't remember what kind of brought it across my desk, but it was probably either like a rented VHS or DVD, I would imagine. But again, like I have no memory of this place. I'm Gandalf in this situation. I don't know how, I don't know when, but it was there.
it didn't come, it just came across your desk in high
It
school, I
just
guess.
came across my desk in high
Someone
school.
just going around the class.
I just sat down on my desk one day in math and it was there on the desk.
Let's talk about the casting of this movie, because I
For
love
sure.
I this casting is it's so unique. It was unique at the time. I still think it is actually. But of course, Harvey Keitel gets caught top billing in this film, which obviously is because of his acting pedigree and the resume that he brings to the table. George Clooney brilliantly cast off character in this film. I think it works really, really well. Of course, he was only really known for ER at the time,
Mhm.
and was trying to become a leading man sort of in the movies. So this is very kind of an inspired choice. Obviously, probably driven by the fact that Tarantino was a hot commodity in the '90s, of course. Is there anything you particularly like about the casting?
Yeah, I think the casting and also to a greater extent, the costume design is kind of perfect. Like
Mm.
even just the throwaway characters like Gloria, the woman that they have in the trunk of the car at the beginning of the film, like she's kind of wearing this like mature, professional, somewhat matronly outfit that kind of like just makes it that much more like appalling with what happens with her with Richie. Um,
So
it's like
she's a
very.
bank she's the bank teller, right?
Yeah, yeah,
From the
she's the
bank
bank
robbery.
teller,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So the costume design in this film is very simple, especially like for what it is, for when it is, and how much it is financially for the budget of this movie. But it kind of gives me like a renewed appreciation for excellent costume design at a very basic, simple level in
Mhm.
terms of just communicating who they are through what they're wearing. Like the tattoo that he has on his neck, like even everything down to like the suits that they're wearing or like the kind of open suit that they're wearing, just kind of says a lot. But I often wonder, like, did Tarantino write the role of Richie for himself?
So, okay, so
Because
we'll
that's
get
the
to that. We'll
question.
get to that in a second. I do just want to point out a couple of things. One, I love the tattoo on George Clooney. I think it's so
Yeah,
awesome because it's almost like it's like this blackness, it's like
just
this
like
evil
just peeking
popping
out.
up. We're gonna get into a couple of things, and one thing is just the influence of Evil Dead, which is something we've kind of talked about through this entire '90s night sort of YouTube series.
Mhm.
But especially in this film, I hadn't really noticed it, which is ironic because obviously Tom Savini's in the movie. Yeah, there's a lot of Evil Dead sort of like references or like little homages throughout the film. I just thought like the black tattoo kind of reminded me of the evil in Ash's hand. So that's
Yeah.
something that I never put together when I was watching this in the '90s, and when I went back and reviewed it, rewatched it a couple rewatch. That's the word I wanted earlier. Rewatch. When I rewatched it a couple nights ago, I was really I was like, oh man, I wonder if that is a reference to that. I have no idea, but I'd love to sit down with Tarantino, of course, and Rodriguez and talk about anything, but especially maybe this flick. But anyway, the other stuff as well, just Benner's old as dirt moment. I did look this up. I can't resist anymore. I have to do it. George Clooney was only 35 when he made this movie. So that makes me feel really, really, really old. But just for the benefit of our audience out there, just in complete interest of transparency, George Clooney was only 35 when he made this movie. So there you go. I'm old as dirt. Also, a quick note as well is that really cool cameo by John Saxon. He's the FBI detective that is in a flashback scene, and Kelly Preston is the reporter, which is pretty cool. And also John Hawkes, who is he's the clerk at Benny's World of Liquor at the opening scene. He is such an amazing actor. He's a working actor. He's a great character actor, and he's been something like he has over 140 credits to his name. But obviously, he's known mostly for his great performance in Winter's Bone, the film, and obviously he was
Mm.
in the Deadwood series on HBO as well. So John Hawkes, pretty awesome, and of course, rounding out the cast, Juliette Lewis, who again was like kind of in everything, every kind of grimy sort of like crime-ridden movie in the 90s. I feel like Juliette Lewis was a part of, which is pretty awesome. I think that's
Yeah,
kind of those are great credits to have on her resume. It's
for sure.
always interesting to watch on screen. And of course Salma Hayek, which I think this is her, I think it was her second or third film. I think Desperado was her first, but of course, you know, one of Robert Rodriguez's longtime muses, and she is awesome in this movie for the scene that she's in. But maybe that's just me talking. But
With
let's
the
get to
improvised snake
Tarantino,
dance,
because
yeah.
yeah, because there's a couple things I want to talk about and dive right into this movie on. Is one that, yes, you're right. Did Tarantino write this character for himself, or did he actually decide that he was perfect to play the role because
Of
of,
the sexual deviant.
I don't know. Like I can't tell like if it was something that he was like it was like it seems like kind of a joke, right? Like
Yeah,
he would be like, "Oh, you know, everyone would joke about this, that, and the other." I think nobody really knew or paid attention to like the foot fetish thing in his films, because I kind of feel like this movie was the start of that as well. Like,
yeah,
and I don't want to get into talking about, you know, whatever, but it's got to be mentioned. I don't remember anything being in, I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've watched Pulp Fiction. I know there's nothing in, I don't think there's anything in Reservoir Dogs. So I think this might be the film that starts that. Now, people will say, well, that's not true because Robert Rodriguez directed this movie. But there is a theory out there, and that they actually both directed this film, and that Robert Rodriguez was given the full credit of it, and Tarantino took the full writing credit. But the idea is that when everybody turns into vampires, that is exactly at the halfway mark of the movie. And everything before that is directed by Tarantino, and everything after that is directed by Rodriguez. Now, I can't find any kind of interview or anything to back that up, but that's the word on the street.